G'day and welcome back to Down the Shed with Byron. Today I'm going to have a crack at fitting the top mount Cross Country Intercooler to my GQ Patrol. And at the moment this is my current setup. So straight out of the turbo, crossover pipe into the air intake. And straight out of the box we've got the scoop, all the pipe work, hosing, clamps. Then I went with the premium top mount intercooler, and there she is. Comes with all the brackets, relatively straightforward to fit. So one of our first jobs to do is to disconnect the washer hosing that goes up to our jets, remove the new sound deadening that I only fitted not long ago, and then we've got to remove the crossover pipe and the little 90-degree elbow there. With a vacuum cleaner and a scraper, I just clean the surface area there. Now with all that sorted, it's time to fit the adapter pipe that they've supplied in the kit. Now it comes with a little stud and nut, which I'll show you. And then they advise putting a bit of silicone or like a sealant around the flange surface. So this is the adapter I was talking about, which bolts onto the intake manifold that way. And that's the stud just there. So what I'll do, I'll put the stud into the manifold first and just nip it up, and then I'll put some sealant around the flange there and we'll bolt that down. Now I've just used a thin smear of 3-bond, and I'll spread that around because you don't want too much on there. I'll wipe the excess off with a rag and we'll be good to bolt that on. So I'll start on that stud sort of side, then in place. We'll get that stud started first for the just in case we can't get the spanner in there after. Right, so that nut's on. I'll just reuse my other bolts that I had from before because I can't see any in the kit. With the adapter flange all tightened up, I've just grabbed the 90-degree stainless, the 45-degree silicone and the 90-degree silicone, and we'll just fit them on loosely. So the 45 onto the adapter. And from the instructions it just says to fit loosely, so obviously we can adjust it as we go. Now we're coming up to a cool part of the project already where we get to fit the intercooler, but we need to remove both the 6mm bolts to hold the radiator in place, which is a 10mm socket or spanner. Well, that was a little bit of a mission just to get into place, but it's manageable. Now we can dummy up the cold side of the pipe work and just see how it fits up. There we go. I've just got them loosely on. It's a bit hard to show you the ones underneath, but what I might do is just put a white mark roughly in line with something, just so you use that as a reference when you put it back on, and tighten everything else up. So just where we can, just mark the hoses to the pipe work. Another thing you'd like to make sure of is, see that little lump there? That's where the bead has rolled. And then you want to put your clamp just behind that. So you want to have enough, at least 20mm, 15mm sort of meat there for the clamp to clamp down onto. At this point, I removed the intercooler again, put those hose clamps on, and just worked out the positioning for them. then refitted the intercooler. Now what I've done, I've put it all back together with the clamps on. Now try and get the clamps into a position that you can, oh there we go, so you can service them as you go. You just want to make sure they're firm each service, so put them in a position that you can get to. And here's our next challenge, to put the hot side of the tubing on from the turbo up to the intercooler. So we've got it to join, going back and forth several times to trial and fit, cutting off a little bit every time. Oh boy, what a job that was. Yeah, just with the two hoses, just being very careful. I put the 90°, just dummy fitted it up, marked it, cut it, and then just worked my way from there. Then I put that little aluminium joiner in the middle. Then I worked out where the 45° sort of went. But yeah, just take your time with that one and cut little bits at a time. The next thing I've done, I just tightened up the radiator bolting, which I'll move on to those rear clamps at the back and tighten them up. And then that's pretty much the intercooler in. The next stage will be wiring up the fan for it. So here's your wiring harness that you get in the kit. Red wire goes to the battery, green wire goes to ignition. Got a Scotch lock to lock it in, terminal, and the harness that goes to the fan. But I'll show you what I will do with that. The instructions advise that you can get your ignition supply from the wiper motor power wire, which I just went through with the test light and it ended up being this one here, which then comes out and it's a red wire. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to solder the signal wire in, then I'll conjure that and tidy that up. I just made an earth down here, cleaned up the surface and put a screw in. You could also run that back into the dash as a switch, depending if you want it on or off. And then I just added that to the battery, which I'll conjure up and make look neat. Now for the test. So with the ignition on, the fan's working. And just to confirm that the fan's going around the right way, it's sucking the paper into it, so that's air's being forced through the cooler. Now once I tidy up that wiring, that's pretty much the install that I can see is complete. The next stage, which is daunting me, but it should be fine, so we need to cut the hole in the bonnet now, which is another mission. So we're going to have to cut the bonnet bracing out, just out of the centre here. But in my wisdom, many years ago, I put a bit of sticker flex under all these to stop it from vibrating. So I'll pull the bonnet off, I'll flip it over and we'll do it on the ground. Go. What I've done here is I just got the instructions and I just sort of paint marked it out where I need to cut. And I seen it on another YouTube channel, which I thought was a cool idea, so you don't go through your bonnet. Just put a bit of scrap steel just underneath. I might cut that one in half so I can use it over this side and around here. But yeah, now it's pretty much try and follow the diagram of where to cut it out and go from there. So yeah, that wasn't as bad as what I thought. I definitely recommend using a 1mm cutting disc and just taking your time. So now clean up my little sticker flex mistake that I made a few years ago. Again, I didn't know I was going to be putting an intercooler on it. And then I'll refit the bonnet and we'll just trial fit where the intercooler hole needs to be. And then we've got the process of fitting the scoop. All right, with the bonnet back on, I gave it a clean prior to that. Well, a bit of a wipe over. In the kit, you get a couple of little bits of foam. I think I stuck one up the wrong way. But they're meant to go sticky side up, like that. So when we shut the bonnet, hopefully they stick to the bonnet and it's transferred where the intercooler is, so we can cut out that hole. All right, there we go. And just like that, we've got our transfer. So we want the hole in the bonnet to be the same size as the core. So making sure we go on the inside of these foam blocks, and that's pretty much where we are cut out. So here we are again. I've traced out the intercooler core shape. I hope I've got this right, because I've got 2 more bonnets to practice with. Now what I'm going to do is just drill a 3mm hole at each corner. That way when we grind it out, you sort of come to that hole, and it keeps it as a nice curve instead of a grinding disc just going straight through. Now we're up to the daunting part of cutting that out. So what we want to be doing is just obviously following our line as straight as possible, but don't just sit there and just cut through. Just try and go nice and easy along the line, and then come back, and then so that way the heat of the steel doesn't transfer and do all that metally stuff where it warps or burn the paint. There we have it, the daunting hole. Lucky me bonnet's not that good anyway, but it's a good practice. So the only tips I can give you there is just go slow and try not to cook your paint, which mine obviously doesn't matter, but at least it was okay. Then I went around with a deburrer and just clean the edges off, just to make them like a bit smoother, which that should be fine. Now, I've just got to double check the instructions, but this is for the scoop. So I'll get some masking tape, measure, 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 and reread the instructions again, and that's where the scoop should go. So with a heap of measurements and a bit of Google research, and then going back to the instructions again, I've got the scoop just in front of the washer jets. So hopefully I've got it right, measured it up, so hopefully it's center. The next thing we're going to do is where that template is. I'm going to run a 3mm drill bit through each hole, and then increase it to possibly 8 or 10, and then that way I'll see how the scoop fits again, and if we need to make adjustments, we may make the holes a little bit bigger. So I ended up going ahead and drilling all those holes out, but one thing I should have done, so when it comes to where the webbing is, you need to drill these out to 20mm so you can fit the washer through. So what I should have done with those holes there is I should have drilled it with like maybe the 6mm drill bit, whatever that size that is. So that way I could have used it as a guide. And again, off this other YouTube channel I've seen, I can't remember what his name was, but use that as a bit of a stopper so you don't go punching all the way through your bonnet skin. So just got one more to do. I'll do a little video, show you. Otherwise that's ready for the scoop to go on. So after I've trial tested it, it fitted, I've just put a bit of that insertion foam in, and we've got another little bit here which is meant to go between the grooves. So we'll fit it into place so we can work out where to put that foam. So I may have got a little bit excited. I ended up just bolting it down into place. No dramas really, except I forgot to cut out one little section which I sorted out with a die grinder. So it's time to fit the bonnet again and see what she looks like. There we go. Shiny parts win hearts. It came out all right. For that kit, I was relatively happy with it. The only daunting part is cutting the hole or drilling the holes, or making sure you've got everything lined up. But otherwise, just take your time with that job. Get a mate around to give you a hand, because I'm telling you now, taking the bonnet on and off a couple of times gets a little bit old. Like to thank me dad for helping us out. He basically sponsors the intercooler. So thanks, Safety Grandpa. Also would like to thank the boys down at Cross Country in South Australia there, Greg. Thanks for hooking us up. Got your stubby holders, mate. They're getting used well. If there's any other tips we can give others, because this is my first time fitting it, throw it in the comments. And it's basically just how I fitted it. And yeah, if it helps you out, it helps you out. Otherwise, take it easy. See you when I'm looking at you.